Hello friends, today I want to make a short video that will be especially interesting for those who have already emigrated to Montenegro. Many of our compatriots make, let's say, small mistakes that are easy to avoid and really should be avoided. And honestly guys, you shouldn't be doing this. What are these mistakes? First, you need to pay your taxes on time. Yes, most people do pay their taxes on time, but unfortunately not everyone does. There are different kinds of taxes. Naturally, they all have different payment deadlines, but at the very least, all Russian-speaking companies in Montenegro and all Russian-speaking directors living in Montenegro have payroll taxes to pay. Because if a company has a director, the director receives a salary, and accordingly there are payroll taxes. In other words, everyone has payroll taxes. Payroll taxes must be paid by the 15th of each month. Some people, however, miss these deadlines, which really makes no sense. The thing is, the tax authorities here are very lenient. Honestly, I have no idea what you'd have to do to actually get fined. But at the same time, you should always keep in mind that just because the tax office is lenient, now just because you can say go 6 months without paying taxes and then pay them later without any consequences, doesn't mean it will always be this lenient. There could always be an order from above. Guys, you're not collecting enough taxes, let's do a better job. Or maybe the head of the tax office will be replaced someday and everything could change. So there's really no point in breaking the rules for no reason. You'll end up paying all those taxes anyway. Why not do it on time? So remember, by the 15th of each month, don't break the rules. I tell this to everyone personally, but for some reason there are still people who forget, who show up 3 months later and start paying for those for the previous months retroactively. In other words, there's no need to do that. Secondly, make sure the company's account has enough money in advance. How do you do that? Well, first of all, if the company is operating or at least simulating activity, which, as you know from my other videos, is generally recommended, then in principle, there shouldn't be any problems. Whether you received payment from a real client or from your neighbor whom you asked to transfer money to pay for some supposedly rendered services to your company, you basically have funds in your account. And if this isn't done, there's another option that everyone used to use, but which is now used less and less since more and more companies are starting real operations or at least simulating them. This option is called a loan from the founder. In other words, the founder lends money to the company, but it's also important, of course, to take care of this in advance so that you can pay taxes on the 15th. Accordingly, you need to have the money before the 15th. Naturally, you shouldn't do this at the last minute, but rather ahead of time. That is, for example, not on the 14th, but at least by the 10th, so that your accountant say, I, for example, some time to get things sorted out, so that I'm not running around on the last day to dozens of companies trying to finish things up. There should be some time in reserve. So yes, you can provide the money on a monthly basis, or if you have the finances and your financial situation is stable, it's really not a problem. You can fund your company for a whole year in advance and not have to deal with this issue again. This will save you a bit of time and it will save me time as well. Next, when you sell a residence permit, I get tired of talking about this. I keep mentioning it. Everyone hears it and then everyone forgets. I do not keep track of your residence permit renewal dates. It is your responsibility to keep track of them. I also don't keep track of who among you received the new residence permit card and when, but especially if you are not ordering renewal services from me. All of this is your responsibility. As soon as you receive your new residence permit, you need to make a copy and give it to your accountant. This applies regardless of whether you use my services or those of another company. This absolutely must be done because after renewing your residence permit, you need to renew your employment contract with the tax office. For this, you need the card with your residence permit. It's a small formality, but it exists and it needs to be done. And one more thing. After receiving your residence permit, you need to arrange for health insurance booklets. We generally handle all of this automatically for the client. That is, my manager registers the person with the tax office. She knows that afterwards the health insurance booklets need to be arranged. The only thing is, guys, all of this doesn't get done in a day. It takes some time. How much time depends on the situation in the country. First, it depends on how busy the officials are. Second, it depends on the vacation season. In the summer, all of this can really, truly take much longer. But for example, last summer, the processing of documents for issuing health insurance booklets, so the director is registered through the tax office, and then family members are registered through the health center. At the health center, things move a bit faster. But when you submit documents to the tax office, the vacation season has a huge impact. And last summer, well, for almost the entire summer, the tax office simply wasn't issuing these confirmations. So there's nothing we can do here. And we really have no influence over their document processing times. So that's just something you need to be aware of. Sometimes there are situations where someone says, my wife is pregnant, she's about to give birth soon, and I still don't have my health insurance booklet. I understand that everyone wants things done quickly, but this is just the situation. Probably you just need to come to Montenegro a couple of months earlier. In other words, immigrate a couple of months earlier so that you don't end up facing a dilemma about whether to pay for childbirth or have a health insurance booklet that entitles you to free medical care. This way, you'll have enough time to get it and you'll be able to give birth for free. So that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Thank you all for your attention. Goodbye.